Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, January 6th, 2022 edition of Ham Radio Q&A. I'm Michael, KB9VBR.
I'm Joe, KD9CJX.
And I'm Dave, KZ9V.
Thank you, Dave, for for dropping in today. It's greatly appreciated. Joe has been feeling a little under the weather the last couple days. So
we can just say it. We can say it. I tested positive. Now, it's not like if you're revealing an HIV status or anything else about me. I got the road, and I'm not trying to make light of it. It's a serious disease, but I think I've got the lightest you can get of it. I didn't know it really until my family, my wife's family, all said, "Oh, we're all getting it," and we've all been together last weekend for late Christmas. And I'm like, "Oh, crap!" So of course, I come home. We had some tests, and I took the tests. And after like 5 minutes, my wife's like, "Well, the rabbit's dead." And I'm like, "What? You're pregnant?" Like, no. Like,
oh, gee.
Dave was gonna be my backup in case I couldn't make it, but I'm feeling pretty good. So we're gonna give it, like I said earlier. If I give the sign, that means I gotta tap out. So just kill the feed. And if I have to blow my nose or something, I'll try to do that off the air.
So if you start hacking and horking, so.
Right. I'll be sitting mute. But in reality, it is a serious illness. I'm not trying to make light of it at all. But all three of us here in the household we're doing okay. Everyone's fine.
Good deal.
We'll get through it.
Good deal. Yeah. So I figured you'd want to get back into it since you sounded like you were bored out of your skull earlier today. So
I think I got to the end of the YouTube. There's not much stuff on YouTube I could see.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
Something more I want to see. It's all bad there.
Yeah. Well, we got some people kind of filling in here. So our buddy Mike from across the river.
Hey Mike.
Good evening, Mike. AJK, good evening, and I saw he already put a question in the chat, so I got that queued up, so we can get to that. Bruce from Ohio, chilly. Good evening. It is. I don't know how you're like below zero already, Dave. I think we're about 8 degrees here in Wausau. So
yeah, it's right at 0 right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we're supposed to get down to about 10 below tonight, so it's gonna be a cold one.
The one nice thing about being at home with COVID is I haven't had to go outside to shovel because we're not leaving.
And that's 10 below Fahrenheit. So people like Paul and in VK land, that's like I don't know, umpteen centigrade.
Yeah. Negative centigrade.
Yeah. Some get well wishes for Joe.
Thank you.
So we got let's see. Yeah, we got a little ham radio social distancing, and that's exactly what's happening here tonight. So Scott from Colorado and Brian from Schofield. Brian, it's good to see you in here. And
thanks for masking up, Dave. I appreciate it. A little late, but thanks for masking up, buddy.
Yeah. Every time Joe talks, I got to put my mask on.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right. So I can tell it's a new year and it's going to be one of those kind of shows. So, so while we're letting people fill in, I just wanted to I got a whole mess of QSL cards over the last month. I guess that's what happens when you start activating parks. But I did want to share a few, and one that really is neat is I got this one in the mail today, and this was the Edmund Fitzgerald special event station. So,
yep.
And I don't know if I can see if I can get. Oh, I don't want.
Whoop, not that. No.
There we go. Make myself big. So that was kind of neat to get that in the mail. That's the Livonia Amateur Radio Club over near Detroit, Michigan. They usually activate. There's a shipwreck museum over there. So
yep.
And then also just wanted to point out, it was a W9 SNH from Lancaster sent me this really cool Parks on the Air sticker. So This is a big one. I'm gonna have to put this one on the trailer when it warms up.
Mhm.
Yeah, don't put it out. Well, can you get to the back of the trailer now that it's in the garage, or?
Oh yeah, we put it. I always put it tongue in, so tongue first, so I can get the trailer, just so I can get to the back or whatnot. So, oh, just a couple more here. I know
In case you have to get to the trailer booze.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I pulled the I had to pull the cooler out, the electric cooler, because we were using it over the holidays. We needed some extra refrigeration space, but this one's kind of neat. WA4 WPG, N9 WYD, K8 UA. This one's a good one too, and that's I don't know what we're looking at. It looks like a nice shoreline of something, Omaha, Nebraska. So I think they got lakes in our buddy Oreo up in the north side of town.
Oh my Lord!
James's QSL card is and K4JMG. So thanks everybody. I always return QSL. So if you catch me on the air and we have a contact, feel free.
Hey, do you guys get QSL cards through the bureau? You ever get bureau cards?
I do.
No.
It's been a long time since don't really do as much DXing as maybe I will. I'll do more when it's as the cycle sort of improves. But
we can all have cards at the bureau. They just haven't sent them yet.
Yeah. Well, they send them like quarterly. So about every 3 months, I'll get a package, and then where I'm getting them from is my trips to Hawaii.
Well, there you go.
When you operate from Hawaii, it's Japan. And the Japanese guys are really adamant about QSL cards. So about every 3 months, I get a bunch, and sometimes they're 2 years old. But
wow,
yeah.
Well, about 10 or 15.
And you go broke. You go broke buying those IRC stamps to send all those Japanese QSL.
Are those like these ones right here? You want to?
Yeah. They're like $1 a piece.
They are.
No,
they're not cheap. These are from 2017. I haven't used them.
Right.
I had planned. We were planning another. I had a reciprocal license for bleeds. Victor 31 Juliet X-ray, and the reciprocal licenses are only good for a year. So I had intended to renew it for another year. I never did it, and I haven't back down there. We could have gone last year, but with everything going on, we obviously stayed home. But so when I need to send it in, I got 2 IMCs right here.
Yeah.
Well, I bought a couple a month or so ago, and they're up to $1.30 a piece. So I had to send a card to Canada. But that's the global airmail, I think they call it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess the post office got to make a buck too, right?
Yeah, it's international mail has just gotten outrageously expensive. But it's crazy like that.
You know who you don't have to spend a lot of money for a QSL card is your wife. She's on the couch again. She's checking in on you.
Yep. First time I've been on this channel. Good to see you, Joe. So it's done. It's glad you're here and found us. Yeah,
there's wife is. There's one for me. It says Dave Viewport in Hawaii.
Oh yeah,
good question.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I have a daughter. I have a daughter that lives in Hawaii on the island of Kauai, and so for the last few years we've tried to get there in January, usually for 10 days or 2 weeks. It's a beautiful thing. So if you have a kid that wants to move and relocate, tell them Hawaii is a wonderful place, and then you can come visit. But since I got active in POTA, I realized that everybody in the world needs Hawaii. So I was all excited about coming up here in January. We were supposed to go to Hawaii, but with COVID and whatnot, the trip is canceled. So the short answer to the question is I won't be in Hawaii this year, but it's an awesome place, and it would be really fun to activate POTA. From there's lots of parks in Kauai, and up on top of the Waimea Canyon, the view is spectacular. You're a couple thousand feet above sea level, so you don't need much power. It'd be a lot of fun. And, yeah.
And you were saying you get all the Japan contacts you ever wanted.
Oh man, it's on, especially
Well,
on FT8. The screen just
Yeah.
turns red. Yeah, and I'm talking like 5 watts or maybe 10 at the most, with a little dipole hanging in a palm tree, and away you go.
I'm
Well,
glad you're
Hawaii
an
is-
FT8 purist, by the way,
Yeah.
because if you were running 100 watts portable on FT8, I'd probably walk out right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, Hawaii is about halfway between, California and Japan, so it's real easy hop there to get
Yeah.
to those Hawaiian contacts.
Yeah, and the propagation is great. South America, New Zealand, China, and all those North Korea, not North Korea, but
Yeah.
South Korea, and yeah, I'll let you know when I get North Korea. But yeah,
99% of
propagation
POTA users need Hawaii, so
100% of POTA users need North Korea.
yeah,
So I guess if you're planning a trip, North Korea is a great place to go.
yeah, a one-way ticket.
Yeah,
There you
sure.
go.
Don't buy a return. You ain't coming back.
Yeah. All right, I got some questions kind of queued up here. So we're gonna first start off with AJ. I watched a guy build a 20-meter dipole antenna, and to figure the length of the wire, he divided 468 by 14,200. I understand where he got the 14,200 frequency from, but where does the 468 number come into play? And then, can you divide 468 by 7,200 to get 40-meter wire length, or is it or is 468 going to be a different number? So the 468 is the magic number for figuring out the length of an antenna in a dipole antenna in feet.
For a
half wave in feet. And actually it would be 468 divided by 7.2 and not 7,200. So if you wanted something at 7.2 megahertz, you would do 468 divided by 7.2, and then if that's 468 divided by 7.2 should be 65.
65.
So,
Feet.
Which would be the half wave. So in order to make that, so a quarter wave on each side, you would have to further divide that by 2.
Right, but so the 468, the reason why I use 468, so you have to understand that if you wanted the length of a half-wave dipole in meters, a whole wave, it would be 300 million divided by the frequency, but we use 468 because that's the conversion to feet for a half wave. If you want a quarter wave, it would be 234.
234, correct.
Right. So about the 468 is basically what we're taking. You were to convert into meters, and then from meters to feet, you just use 468. Long and short of it is, but it works.
So if we were going to do something for the 20-meter band, 468 divided by 14.2 gives us
30 some odd feet.
32.99596.
Yeah, so
And that would be
30,
that would be a half wave. So we would have to cut that
for 20 meters, 66 feet for 40 meters. That's kind of sort of what you remember. Maybe you start making antennas. And then the length will change a little bit depending on where you want the sweet spot. CW, phone, and it'll change a little bit if you use bare copper wire or insulated copper wire.
Yes.
A little bit, not much. So an analyzer or an SWR meter is something you want to have on hand when you're tuning those.
Yeah. And that's there you're talking about velocity factor, which is a little bit different story, but typically your bare copper wire is going to be a little bit longer than your insulated copper wire. So if I'm making an antenna using insulated wire, I usually cut to length of the formula, and then that gives you a little bit of working room to trim down as necessary.
Yeah. And you've got ground effects too. And And that's going to impact both the resonant length and the impedance based on how high that thing is above the ground and the soil that it's over. So there's a lot of variables.
Yeah, so it's yep. So I guess we got that. Yeah, we got that question going there. So good deal. Yeah, that was a fun one. So let's see. We got another DX. Ivan from Chile is here. So
I was born at 6 feet away. He's doing all right.
yeah. Good deal. So another kind of good question here. And we're talking, this one's about noise. And is there a particular polarization for general urban or suburban RF noise? And I think, the general rule is that, when we talk about noise and polarization, especially on the HF bands, is that vertical antennas seem to be noisier than horizontal ones. So, you figure, well, a vertical antenna might induce more noise, or receive more noise than a horizontal one, but that's not always the case, is it?
No, I found that long wire antennas, end feds, half waves or randoms are, because they're not necessarily tuned, they don't reject a lot of noise, so you get a lot of noise in them. A dipole, being more of a tuned circuit, generally at resonance is going to be a little less noisier. Same thing with verticals, they're resonant at a particular spot, you can have less noise there. Another good example is you use a mag loop, and a mag loop is really good at rejecting anything outside of the passband.
Yeah.
So they're using like Chameleon. We demonstrated the P loop a few years ago. If you're outside of that passband, especially in 40 meters or the lower bands, there is no noise out there. So that's just my 2 cents on. But vertical, horizontal, it's going to really depend on what type of interference you're getting. So
yeah, I've got I've got 2 antennas now. I've got the G5RV that I always use, but then this winter I put up a random wire end-fed antenna to just kind of play with it and get more experience with these non-resonant random wire antennas. And the certain times of the day, I get a higher noise. I get more noise on the random wire there again, because it's an untuned, it's a non-resonant antenna than I do with the G5, which on the 20, on 20 meter bands especially is considered a resonant antenna. So, but on the other bands, it's non-resonant. So yeah, it's interesting how the different style of antennas can have different levels of noise. And other winters, I've done the Wolf River coil, in the backyard, and switching between the 2 antennas, you could tell the difference between vertical and horizontal, because the noise flare would just go up and down, up and down. So
the best thing is to move your antenna about 100 yards away from your house.
So I put it on my neighbor's property.
Luxury, Dave.
I hang it over my neighbor, I guess.
100 yards from his house too.
45 Auto wants to know, shouldn't there be Brandy Alexanders available for viewers? So we're from Wisconsin, so it'd be old fashions. Although Brandy Alexanders would be nice, because that's that nice ice cream drink, on a cold night like tonight. So that'll make you feel better, Joe.
The only alcohol I would have tonight is probably NyQuil. A little menthol in there. That's all I really need.
Oh, there, yeah.
I heard brandy cures COVID, Joe. You got to try that.
Yeah.
What's that?
I heard brandy is a cure for COVID.
Well, you sound like my father. You have a little bottle of Christian Brothers everywhere he went. Good Catholic brand.
The blackberry brandy.
No, don't even start saying. Don't be talking about blackberry brandy. Oh, bad.
My father-in-law had that in his car as part of his winter survival kit.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Blackberry brandy, Janufka. Oh,
Mhm.
a little Polish. The only thing worse than that is snowshoe grog.
Well, we could hot tea and whiskey with lemon. Oh, that is the perfect thing. If you've got yeah chest cold and that'll clean you out really nice. And of course the hot toddy. We got a
Toddy.
bar
Yeah.
in we got a bar in town that makes the best hot toddies, but they only serve them between Thanksgiving and New Year's. And then
Okay.
after that,
Yeah.
the fancy little mugs go away for another year. So all right, I got a let's see. Got a question that somebody emailed that I think is a really good one. Richard asks, so, and this is in regards to that NFED antennas video that we did last summer. You know, the presentation at Field Day. And he's talking about the feed chokes at the feed point. Do you want to choke as close to the antenna feed point? Yet others are in our video we said that you want to put the choke as close as you can to the feed point. Yet Richard here says others and the YouTube channel Waters and Stanton, for example, say to have it close to the shack. So which is it? And that is a really good question, because there's two different thoughts or on using chokes on your feed line for end-fed half-wave antennas, end-fed random wire antennas. Some people say choke it right at the feed point so you don't have any of those common mode currents coming back down, back down the feed line, and use. And then others say, well, no, put the choke closer to the transceiver, and then you can take advantage of that length of wire length of feed line as part of your counterpoise. So is there any, I don't know if you guys have any opinion on any one right way to do that or not. So.
Yeah, well, I think there's more than two opinions on that. If you go on the Facebook group, you'll get 100 opinions on that.
Yeah.
And 3 of them might be right.
Yeah. So here's what I did. Because I had the same question, and before the snow flew and the ground froze, I actually took my end-fed, my 40-meter end-fed out and set it up and tried all of those different scenarios. First with no choke, and then with a choke at the antenna, and then with a choke at the radio, and then a choke like halfway down the line, and all these different scenarios. And then I used Whisper. And so got all these signal reports from all over the planet. And in the span of an hour, I tried to replicate all of these different scenarios. And thinking that, okay, one of these is going to be really great and one of these is going to really suck. And what's the magnitude of the difference? And to be honest, all the different scenarios pretty much came out in the wash. There was probably a grand total of maybe 6 or 7 dB difference between the very best scenario and the very worst scenario. And, that could be impacted just by propagation changes over the period of an hour's time. So, in my opinion, there is no absolute horrible way to do it, nor is there an absolute perfect way to do it. And the difference between the two is not that great.
Yeah.
So guys that will go to their deathbed defending one or the other, I'm hard pressed.
I think it's one thing I would probably say is that if you're receiving, because we're talking about common mode currents, and one of the potentials with end-fed antennas is RF in the shack. So if you're getting bit, on the tuner or the transceiver, then I'd choke that feed line up. So.
Oh yeah, I'm a big advocate of a choke. I think if for no other reason is to keep RF out of the shack, but it seems to stabilize the standing wave ratio, keeps the impedance somewhat uniform, and especially when you're going portable, and every setup is a little different. You've got so many variables, and having that choke, and in my case, I have it about, I don't know what it is, maybe 15 or 16 feet away from the transformer. And that choke seems to kind of stabilize at least a few of the variables as I go from park to park to park. So I'm a big advocate of a choke somewhere in that transmission line between the transformer and the radio.
Yeah, and I've seen some people put the choke maybe 20 feet out, so you get some of the benefit, but it doesn't totally impact your station.
So if we take a look at the end-fed half-wave antenna was developed from the ZEP antenna, which was a half-wave wire fed with open feed line. Open feed line cut to a specific length of quarter wave of the lowest frequency you're going to use as a matching section. And that open feed line acts as a counterpoise. So the original way it was done is that you use your feed line as a counterpoise in that regards. But now that we've all gone to Coax and we're using balance at our feed points to do the impedance transformer, we don't necessarily think of it as a counterpoise, but it still can be. Now, you don't need a counterpoise necessarily. So maybe one way to think of it is if you already have a counterpoise on, you could probably run that choke right up at the feed point and not have any problems or not see any difference in performance. If you're not running a counterpoise, well then maybe run your choke closer to the transmitter or put a choke in at a specific quarter wavelength to your lowest frequency. See what that does. I think there's a couple ways you can play that, depending on how that's set up. And that may be something we want to try down the road. We could actually, like Dave did, we could do some whisper tests on that, a couple different setups and see how that works. But I don't think there's a right or wrong way necessarily where to do it. But if you're getting RF from the shack, you got to put a choke on. That's
Especially if you're running high power. Oh my God! Yeah.
High power. You want to do
that? Yeah, we always put a little bit of choke on my counterpoise. So I don't think so.
I thought I had the dirtiest choke in ham radio. We'll save that one for off the air. Anywho, moving along.
Okay, I'm going to do one more quick one here, and then we're going to go through a halftime break here. But Latrells asks, what do you think of as an ideal size battery and solar panel for a hard day of calling CQ?
This is a hobby. Don't get too hard. And don't work yourself.
I think that would depend on what your transmit power is going to be. First off, what the parameters are, your power, your power budget,
and what mode you're operating too.
Yeah, what modes and whatnot. Because QRP, you can get away with a smaller battery and a smaller panel than you would if you're going 50 or even or 100 watts. If you're going to run 100 watts, I think the smallest battery you're probably going to want is a 20 amp hour battery. Anything smaller than that, and we're talking lithium iron phosphate batteries. Anything smaller than that, and then the BMS is going to have a hard time just providing enough energy, to the transceiver. It's going to start to cut that a little bit. 12 hour, I usually run 50 watts with a 12 amp hour battery. I'll get 2.5 hours of good hard use. 20 amp hour, you should be able to double that all day long. So throw a solar panel in the mix, and then you can, granted, if you've got sunlight, you would definitely, go longer than that. 100 watt solar panel in full sun will generate about 6 amp hours of power. So you get 6 amp hours of power return. So if you had a 100 watt panel and a 20 amp hour battery and you were in a sunny spot, you could I think you would almost be able to drive it all day long without depleting. But
Right.
then,
But and as Dave said,
mhm.
the mode definitely makes a difference. 50 watts sideband is nothing compared to what you're pulling 10 watts FT8 or RIDI or CW. Those full duty cycle, even though you're running a low power, they really do pull a lot out of there. Sideband sips the juice compared to those modes.
Yep.
So that's something to consider. But I run a 15 amp hour light bulb, and usually what I do is I'll pick out 2 or 3 parks for the day, and I'll just hit. I'll get to my 10, 15 contact at one, pack up the next one, and I'll usually charge the battery in the car. I have a charger in there. It'll charge and just kind of sort of top it off, and that's how I do it. But if I were going to do a whole day activation, I would say probably 20 to 30 amp hour battery with 25 to 50 watts of solar.
Yeah.
I don't think very many of the POTA activators are doing all day activations. You know, like from sun up till sundown. I think a lot of them, they set up, they operate for an hour, they pack up, go somewhere else, or they go have lunch, or they go fishing.
Lunch.
Yeah. It's not.
We have
most of the POTA guys, it's not like a contest where they go sleep deprived for 48 hours.
Yeah.
So I think most of us probably carry more battery capacity than we ever use. So
I would tend to agree with that, and I would probably, if I was just deactivating, I probably wouldn't pull the solar panel out just because it's could be a hassle. When I'm out camping, you know, we got the panel on the trailer, and I've got the auxiliary panel. So there's 180. I got 180 watts on the trailer, and then another 100 watts to feed into the battery. But we're also, you know, I need about almost, 15, 20 amps a day, amp hours a day to keep the electric refrigerator and all of the other power stuff that's going on in the trailer. So it's the solar becomes a necessity to keep all of that going for an entire weekend.
You know what, my biggest battery issue on my activations is not the radio, it's my laptop. You know, a lot of guys use a laptop for logging. I use it for I like to do PSK or RIDI sometimes, and FT8 or whatever, and that darn laptop battery doesn't last long at all. That annoys me. But my computer uses 19 volts, so it's not like I can power it off of my radio battery.
You almost need an inverter.
Now, I heard someone. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and someone had a laptop, more of a tablet, I think it was, charged off USB, so 5 volts, but it had like the Intel Atom processor, which is notoriously, but for logging, it would be fine. But I don't know if logging and running with PSK or WSJT or any of the other programs that you'd operate a radio with, I don't know how it would work with that. But yeah, the odd voltage of a laptop is annoying.
Yeah. So it's Scout 75 says stop bringing the solar panel at activations. So exactly, it's just overkill. But it's the perfect companion if you're spending the weekend out there.
Right.
So
yeah, especially if there's no shore power to come to. You gotta have solar.
Exactly. So, well, we're at the bottom of the hour here, and I just want to kind of take a moment to just thank all of our patrons that are over on Patreon that help support the channel, and of course, I'm gonna bring up our new patrons this month. At the friend level is Robert West, and our basic supporter level, Alan Beckman, Jay McCall Bundy, and Ronald Rummel Jr. And I know Alan is here tonight because I saw him do a nice comment, new member here. So thank you, Alan, for your support. It's greatly appreciated. And also we have, of course, our associate producers, Dave White, who's joining us tonight, Paul Sweeney, Dave Hansen, Brian Liebing, Tyler J, Rand Gray, Jack Kelly, and Holger Erlins Peterson. Those are the ones that really they're the ones that we have the highest thanks for, because they believe in the channel the most, and we are eternally grateful for their continued support.
Remember, this week you're not paying for beer, you're paying for NyQuil for me, guys.
That's right.
Keep the dream alive.
And you can help us out, support the mission to educate and inspire the amateur radio community. That's at patreon.com/KB9VBR antennas. So we'll let that little bug run for a second as I get back over to our comments here and see if we can pull up another one. Okay. Jason asks, should I do a coax cable loops at the feed point of my KB9 VBR Slim Jim antenna, or I have pretty clear signal on a repeater 78 miles away? The thing about the coax cable loops is what they do, like we were talking about choking the end-fed half-wave antennas just a little bit earlier, is they help eliminate common mode currents coming back down the feed line towards your transmitter. It can affect performance. I always say that adding the choke never hurts, and usually will help things. And I've seen plenty of situations where not running the choke at all doesn't have a negative effect on your antenna or your station or whatnot. So if you're getting good signal reports, it's getting out, your SWR is low, you're probably fine without it. So, and then I've seen other installs where it's it's been a bear to get things to work right. We put the chokes on, and then it's just smooth sailing. So.
Right. But the key, though, is if you are going to make a choke, is that the coax can be wound tight. You don't want to have any gaps in between the loops at all. You can use black electrical tape. You can use the Velcro, but whatever you use, make sure that it's well formed. A good thing is a small coffee can, about 5 inches round, or maybe a piece of 4-inch PVC, something that you can form that around. That'll really help keep those loops tight, and that'll work more efficient, because I've seen some that are pretty sloppy and they're not going to work. They really don't. So.
So, all right. Let's see. Paul asks here, let's see if I can figure this question out. Using a carbon fiber fishing pole, I was wondering, if we use an insulator, will there still be interference using carbon fiber? I'm using an end-fed long wire for QRP. So I'm guessing that the carbon fiber fishing pole, that's for antenna support. So.
Yeah, I don't think the carbon fiber is going to have an effect on it. I could be very wrong on that. I got to adjust my audio here. Yeah. But no, I don't think that a carbon fiber fishing pole would have any effect.
It's not.
I've heard some guys that do, where the carbon fiber, I don't know what the conductivity is, but there is some, and it does interact with the antenna, especially if you're using like an end-fed where the wire is running right up the side of that carbon fiber pole. It will interact, and you'll see some effect on the impedance. I don't know if it will affect the performance as far as signal being radiated, but you'll see a change in the standing wave ratio.
So if you use a standoff or an insulator of some sort,
get your wire away from the pole. Sure, then it's just like you would if, you wouldn't run an end-fed up the side of an aluminum support pole, or but.
Yeah, but we run long wire antennas and gutters all the time too.
Or at the very least you use the vinyl gutters, but
right.
I suppose I suppose you
fill
could
it-
put it into.
If you fill your
Uh,
gutter with salt water, then it will work.
Oh, there we go.
Well, they're full of a lot of things. I don't know if it's water right now.
All right. Todd asks, this is something we've talked about before. If you could just have one portable HF antenna, which would you choose and why? Oh, geez. If I was thinking a portable HF, if I could only go with one, I would probably do something like the vertical antenna, like the Wolf River coil. It gives good multi-band support. It's easy to set up, and I don't have to worry about support structures. So, if I was looking for like a Swiss Army antenna, it would be it. If my answer would be a wire antenna, I've been leaning awful heavy towards those end-fed antennas, and that seems to be working quite well for me. That might be my second choice. So.
Yeah, my line of thinking has changed dramatically. A year ago, if you'd asked me, I'd have said that linked dipole is the cat's meow. And I still believe that of all the antennas that I use, and I do not use a Wolf River coil, of all the wires antennas that I use, the linked dipole is by far the best performer. So I can hear better and I can get a little more signal out of it. But I'm a believer now in this end-fed. This end-fed half wave. It's a 40 meter that I have, and then you saw the little trick that I do to add 80 meters to it. But I took one out the other day, and I wound up running 10 bands from the same park on the same day without ever getting out of my car, which in Wisconsin in the wintertime, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if you can stand to be out there long enough and find a tree or have a fiberglass telescopic pole or something just to get it up off the ground, if I can only pick one, I'm taking that ed and fed.
Mm-hmm.
A dipole is always going to probably be the best performer, but the problem is you got to get the height, and in a portable setting, height is a little harder to come by. We have some tricks to getting in trees and stuff, but that's not always possible. The end fed for a wire antenna goes up real quick. It needs only one support. You can get away with it not being perfect, and you have that multi-band support. So that's definitely something to think about. But if you look at a vertical or a small compact verticals, such as the Wolf River coil, the Chameleon's empath, the Buddy stick, those are very efficient. Not very efficient, but they're easy to set up. Relatively efficient. There's a lot of Q in those coils, and they work just fine for parks on the air, getting out, and they're very lightweight. So honestly, give me some wire. I'm kind of old school. Give me some wire and some connectors. I'll make something, and I'll make it work. But sometimes having a nice store-bought antenna is nice too. So
yeah,
really, I don't have a preference. You give me, like I said, you give me something, I'll get it out of the air one way or the
other. Yeah, I carry 2 or 3 antennas with me, and it's usually depend. Do a site survey and figure what's gonna go up best and what's gonna work for me. 2 weeks ago, was it Christmas Eve? I did a Parks on the Air activation, and it was raining, and I put that end fed half wave up in record time in the rain, but because I didn't have to futz with tuning and ground radials or anything like that. But then again, I could probably put that antenna up in my sleep. I've done it so many times. So. But and then a week later, New Year's Eve, I did an activation and I used the Wolf River coil. It was like 25 degrees out, and it went up nice and easy. So tuning wasn't so hard that time. But if it got any colder, then I'm thinking about ham sticks and just slapping them on the roof of the car. So
You know, I've got one of those tactical soda telescopic. It's a fiberglass pole. I think that's like a 7,000 or whatever it is. And with a trailer hitch mount, I can put that thing up in like 5 minutes. And you can use either the link dipole or the inverted, end-fed half-wave in an inverted L configuration. Goes up really fast, and you don't need any trees for that. And
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, every setup is going to be a little bit different. So it really depends on what you got. You got to have a couple in your bag, I think. And, Michael's got 3. I always keep an end fed. I always have my buddy stick, and there's usually something else in there too. So whatever works best for the setup at the time, especially in the winter, because speed is key in the winter.
Oh, those shark sticks on the mag mount on the roof. Oh, quick. That's sweet. Yeah,
absolutely. They're quick, but they're definitely a compromise too. So it's a sort of a trade-off. But
if you get on the higher bands,
whatever catches the fish.
20 and 15 and 10 is not so bad with the shark sticks. They're pretty effective up there. It's you drop down to 40 and then it gets pretty big compromise there. But
and 80 is like a nice edge. It's really, you get one little sliver of the band at best, and that's about it.
Yeah. So just gonna thank Paul here for the super chat. It's much your generosity is greatly appreciated here tonight.
That's $10 Australian. We got some $50 coming. All right.
Yay! Send us some Fosters.
I was just going to say that. We'll take a can of Fosters each, please.
All right. And I was going to pull up one more question here quick, and then we're gonna go to one of our featured questions for this evening. But Scout asks, because Jonah, we were talking about this just recently. Do you think Kenwood is leaving the amateur radio market? Of the big 3, they are only one that hasn't released a new radio in the past years and discontinued their flagship HT.
They discontinued their flagship mobile radios too.
VHF, UHF mobiles. Yeah. So what do they got in their catalog? They got a VHF handheld, and they've got 3 HF transceivers. Yeah. The 590 series, the 890, and the 990. So
in the past year, they their flagship radios, DS2000, the D710. Well, let's just say the D710 was based on the D700, which is a 20-year-old design. The TS2000 is a 20-year-old design.
Yeah.
So understandably, I mean, they're probably starting to get to a point where they can't find parts for those anymore after 20 years. But they haven't introduced anything. And the HF radios they have out right now are not new by any means.
But that's the way Kenwood works. They come out with something, and then they run with that line for a very long period of time, with just little incremental updates. You get the S, and then you get the G, and then the SG, and whatnot. So they're transceivers, might have a 10, 15 year lineage to them. So
right.
I don't know. It's their land mobile division, I guess, is still going great guns.
Right. Yeah. They're land mobile. They do P25. They're in public service and commercial, but I don't think you're going to see them in the amateur for much longer. I don't think. The amount of money that ICOM and Yaesu have put into their business for new radios, and the slew of stuff that's coming from Japan and China, really.
Yeah.
I think Kenwood's probably saying we're not gonna compete. We'll sell what we got, and when we're done.
Maybe we'll see. I'm not going to prognosticate because more often than not I'm wrong. Then they come out with something. I think they're hurting. Supply chain is really hurting them, and they're again 20-year-old designs. Chip parts are no longer available, so I think they're a little bit hamstrung. So.
Hey, Michael, there's a chat going here with 45 Auto. He asked the
Okay.
question. He asked the question with the link dipole on the.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, on the support pole on the hitch mount.
Yeah.
And so what I do is my link dipole goes up as an inverted V. Okay, so I don't need trees. I've got my support pole and what I do is I stretch it out and I tie it off on these like they're like these little driveway markers. They're fiberglass things that you can get at Menards. They're like 4 feet tall or 5 feet tall. And what I want to point out is on this link dipole, it's really important. And I learned all this, everything I know, I learned the hard way. It's really important that the angle of the V and the elevation of the tip of the V, it stays as uniform as you can from location to location, because the height of the V and the angle of the aperture will affect both the resonant point and the impedance of that antenna. So, you spend a week trying to tune that thing up to get it just perfect at your house, and then you go off to some park, you put the thing up, and all of a sudden what was a 1.2 or 1.5 VSWR, now it's 1.8 or 1.9. And you're like, what happened? Did somebody cut a chunk of wire off of here or what? And then the next day you're at a different park, you put it up and boom, now it's 1.2. Whoa, what happened? How did that, so what you want to try to do is be as consistent from each setup. And so I've actually gone to the point where I pace it off so that my stake where I tie it off, whether it's a tent stake or the driveway marker or a tree or whatever it is the same distance, so that I try to maintain the same height and the same aperture angle with every setup. And it's not always possible, but it does have an impact. And
Yeah, I've noticed with my link dipole, there's always a wide amount of variability at every time I put it up different campsites. Height might be slightly different. The V might not be the same, because if it's got more height, then you got a sharper, a flatter angle than if it was a shorter one. So it's crazy. And
yeah. And the thing is, you don't want to get a career out of retuning your antenna every time you set it up, because the next time you go to set it up, it's going to be different. So you have to learn to get over the fact that your VSWR is not always going to be 1.1 to 1 and be happy, because performance-wise, it really, the guy on the other end isn't going to notice the fact that your VSWR is 1.7 or 1.1 or 1 point whatever. So,
And the one thing that we have to understand is that SWR is really only telling you the efficiency of your feed line to your feed point. It's not a basis of what your antenna efficiency is at all. So it's something to know. It's something to mitigate if it's real high, but it's not the end of the world. You can have a 2 to 1 SWR. You can still make great contacts. Because remember that SWR and resonance are not the same thing by any means.
Yeah. Correct. And your SWR can vary wildly, but resonance will typically stay quite the same. So as long as, and like I said, it's different. I get different SWRs with different setups. As long as it's 1.7 or better, I don't bother I don't drag out the tuner to smooth it out. So, and I'll just run with it, and it works just fine. I have no problems making contact.
And if we're running a kilowatt through a 200-foot high loss coax, that's a whole different cat.
Yeah.
But we're not. 20 watts through a 25-foot coax. Who cares?
And you got to remember that when we run an end fed or end fed half wave or random wire, that the actual impedance at that feed point is astronomical. We're using an impedance transformer to get it down reasonably close, so we can get like a 3 to 1 or 2 to 1 or something like that. or we're using ladder line as a matching section to try to mitigate that. But realistically, what that feed point is, whether it's 50 ohms or 5,000 ohms, it can still be resonant and we can still use it. Even if it's not resonant, it'll still radiate. It'll radiate just fine usually.
Yep.
Exactly. So, speaking of linked dipoles, Bruce asks, is there any way to make a linked dipole where the links can be controlled remotely? The biggest issue with linked dipoles to me is having to consistently bring it up and down to change the links.
You can't run trap, but
yeah,
you lose your power in the trap. I'm not a fan of trap dipoles, but if you want to put something up that you don't have to bring down, trap dipoles the way to go. Otherwise, I don't know of a mechanical or electrical mechanism like a relay or something that you can put in there that wouldn't cause other issues. Because if you put like maybe a solid state relay, they make solid state relays, but I think trying to figure something out like that would be a little. I think you'd be doing more damage to the antenna than actually helping it. So a trap, that's what a trap does. Is that it's just a tuned circuit. And you set the traps at different frequencies to allow lower frequencies to go out, but frequencies above the certain that cutoff don't go past the trap, and that's the way.
I thought I saw something in an issue of QST once. I don't know if it was a remote controlled trap dipole or if it was a remote controlled link dipole, but might have to do a little bit of research to see if I can find if that article even exists, and if it does, if I could find it. But,
it could have been a dream. Right?
It might have been in the April issue too.
Right. Oh, okay. No, I had seen. I've seen this a couple times, and again, I don't know if I read this in April or not, April 1st. That the military have been experimenting with liquid metal antennas, where such as mercury or some other metal that was in a liquid state, and that when you ran RF through it, it'd be in a vacuum tube that would change lengths based on resonance and effectively tune itself. Now, I don't know much about that, and I'm sure that if there was out there, it'd be a lot more than I could ever afford. But the military doesn't have, a wife sitting around at home saying you can't spend that much money.
Well, even a stepper is more than I can afford. So, Bruce says I'll have to look into trap dipoles. Trap dipoles are kind of they're interesting, and not to knock them. They are, it's for some in certain instances that's a good way to get a multi-band antenna in a space, but there are efficiency issues, so that's not going to be a good antenna for QRP. But
we'll never use it for QRP. But if you're running 100 watts, you can use them.
100 watts, and on the lower bands at 80 meters, it's going to be a little bit. It's the bandwidth is going to be really sharp too. But it's a good antenna. I mean, it might be a wholly appropriate choice, and there's some good information. If you're an ARRL member, do a magazine search for trap dipoles. There's a lot of they've got a lot of articles, or look at the ARRL antenna book. There's some really nice information in there about trap dipoles if you want to learn more about those antennas.
The bandwidth is so narrow on those that gets challenging. But you know what? If you're an FT8 addict, who cares about bandwidth? Those guys, they tune up on 7.074 and they're there for eternity. So who cares?
Right. Oh, absolutely. If you're a CW fanatic, and you don't need a lot of, there's not a lot of bandwidth you need down, even on 80 meters, you got 100 kilohertz. Well, if you have an antenna that's only good for 50 kilohertz, so be it. You got plenty of real estate to run CW as well.
Yep. And it's an old design, and that might be part of the allure too. Is it's have a trap dipole tuned at the bottoms of the bands for the DXer, and
or in the old days you just tune it to whatever crystals you had.
There you go.
I got a crystal for 7 .045. So what's going to be my center frequency?
Yeah. The good old days, not.
Yeah, the good old days. All right. Well, I had an interesting question that came in this last month, and I just kind of saved it for tonight. And I thought we could bounce this off of you guys and the chat room here, because it's something that I know we'll probably start a holy war or whatnot. But I had a viewer write in his in a comment on a video. He said, "Ham radio is not a hobby. It's an indispensable, irreplaceable service. That kind of talk will encourage more of the amateur bands being sold to the highest bidder and or eliminated by tyrannical politicians." So,
Wow.
So the big question is ham radio a hobby or is it a service?
I'll let you guys go first.
All right.
I'll go last.
You go last.
Okay.
I'll start things off. Well,
right.
I'm going to be, ham radio was a lot of things to a lot of different people. And I think, at the end of the day, we're going to end up with that. But I'm going to start off being a little pedantic here and then, and say this, ham radio is a hobby. Amateur radio is a service. And if you're gonna refer to what we do on the air as a service, we want to call it the amateur radio service, as defined by the FCC in Part 97 of their regulations. If we want to have fun and be jocular on the air, ham radio is a hobby. So, I don't know. Do you want to kick this cat, Joe?
I did research.
Oh boy. Yeah.
From the book of Genesis, FTC Part 97.1. The rules and regulations in this part are designed to provide an amateur radio service having a fundamental purpose as expressed in the following principles. A, recognition and enhancement of the value of the amateur service to the public as a voluntary non-commercial communication service, particularly with respect to providing emergency communications. Okay, that's nice. B, a continuation and extension of the amateur's proven ability to contribute to the advancement of the radio art. Complete polar opposites, right? C, encouragement and improvement of the amateur service through rules which provide for advancing skills in both the communication and technical phases of the art. Again, they're talking about the art there. Expansion of the existing reservoir within the amateur radio service of trained operators, technicians, and electronics experts, which sounds more like a service. And continuation and extension of the amateur's unique ability to enhance international goodwill, which is kind of really neither. Now, realistically, is the government looking for trained operators, technicians, and electronic experts anymore out of amateur radio operators? I mean, that seems like something of a bygone era when people got drafted. Oh, you got a ham radio license? Well, you're going to be a radio operator now in the airport. That I don't know if that necessarily translates into today. Not just because we don't have a conscription service, but because I think that there's been such a divergence between emergency communications and amateur radio. Even people who are in Aries and Races and get all their ICS and everything else taken care of, really a day after. And I've been in Aries Races for 6-7 years now. Things are really starting to go apart. And Michael, you've been an emergency coordinator for how long now?
Plenty of years.
Right. It's just getting to the point where it's like at some point in time, I don't see amateur radio going to be in some of those emergency plans anymore. I just think that it's so different now, and that especially in law enforcement, they don't want anyone else in there. They really don't. And I'm not going to say good or bad or why they want to do that. That's their own thing. Almost everyone's now encrypted. Remember the old days, everyone ran analog and, we all listened in. Nowadays, everything's P25 encrypted, and they're looking for more ways to get it private and secure.
Yeah.
And I just don't know where we're going to be in that. The league is doing a lot. They just hired a new director of emergency communications. I just announced that this week.
Yep.
And the league is putting a lot into that because of what we sell ourselves as. And I'm going to say this: we sell it as a service. Okay. In reality, push comes to shove, how many amateur stations are going to be ready to help out when the proverbial what hits the fan? I don't know. I don't know. So I'm just going to say that on paper, we're a service. I don't know. I would personally say that this is my hobby. And, if I'm available to help, and I do help, we do storm spotting, we do areas and stuff. But if push comes to shove, I don't know where I'm going to be.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
I personally don't think I'm going to survive the apocalypse.
Yeah.
I'm a big fat chubby guy. I'm the slow guy running from the zombie horde. So, I say that selling ourselves as an emergency is what we do to protect our spectrum, but in reality, I question it. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So Dave, you
I think
give her a kick.
I think there's a small percentage of amateurs that are very public service oriented. They're still practicing handling traffic and networks, and they're going out and storm spotting and things like that. But is it 50% of the amateurs? Certainly not. Is it 10%? Probably not. I think the last thing I did that would really qualify as public service was back in the Vietnam War. I ran phone patch traffic between soldiers that were on these ships that talking to grandma, with the phone patch. That was 50 years ago. So I don't know. We use it to justify our hobby. I think is really.
I agree with you 120% there. We use it a lot to justify our hobby. But the question is, put your money where the mouth is, and that's something we're gonna have to do at some point in time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just threw a poll out there. We'll let that run for a few minutes and see what our viewers think. But I do have a little bit of a few of the comments that I've starred here. Let's see. Yeah, Scout 75 hobby can contribute to public service in a minor role. I think you're spot on that. It's certain, like I said, it's many things to many people, but first and foremost, I think, even though we're listed as a service, it is a hobby. It's an avocation. Brent says it's a hobby until the need is there to serve the needs of the public. We absolutely can put our skills to use when there is a time of need. Tommy says eating food will keep you alive, and it can be fun to eat too. So a little philosophical there.
And some people have a little hobby farm, right? But another point I wanted to make is that we talk about services, government services, which we have the uniform services, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, National Guard. We have the non-military uniform services, which is the Public Health Corps and NOAA, the NOAA Corps. There's two that we never talk about them. We kind of talked about the Public Health Corps recently as, we've had these secondary hospitals because of COVID outbreak. But there are groups of individuals that are enlisted into this. They have officer rankings. They train as units. They go out and as government as they're ordered to assist with public health crises or weather crises such as NOAA, and so on and so forth. We kind of have a structure with RACES. But RACES doesn't exist unless the president opens it up, or like in a statewide emergency management. Otherwise, always under the auspices of Aries, which is just a arm of the ARRL.
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of have a structure, but it used to be a lot more. Just this couple weeks ago, Michael and I were going through our club archives, and there were logs of racing nets that said "Do not destroy." Like these were important government documents from the 50s and 60s. We tossed them. Probably because there was so much stuff that it just there's no reason. And that was from the 50s. There was a mindset from the 50s and 60s that we need to have all this documentation. Well, Aries doesn't exist until there's a national emergency anymore. Everything we're doing is under a non-governmental ARRL. It's really gotten away from that. So I read off those 5 statements from 97.1, and I think 1 and 4, they're a lot weaker than what they used to be. I will say that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, yeah, Joe says, "Yay, races!" And Joe also says, "I think the service aspect will come back into vogue," and it very well may. It's hard to say. I know, you think of it on a public safety standpoint, a lot, your local police and fire department, emergency management, sheriff's department, all have backup systems now. If they're using AT&T's FirstNet redundant cellular networks, we become less of a need in that role. So if we're going to provide emergency communications, it may be different than what we're expecting. It may not be standing at the shelter or shadowing a public official or something like that. It could be filling sandbags or something of that nature that may not even be radio related at its core. So
I will say at some point in time, we talk about 9/11, what we did on 9/11. We talk about Katrina. We assisted in Katrina. I've heard stories about the earthquake in Haiti, and there was one guy in chapel that had collapsed, and he's hiding in the rubble, and he's running CW 5 watts, and all of a sudden his signal goes out. They can't hear him. They're trying to call him, trying to find out what's going on. Comes back 10 minutes later and says, "Oh, sorry, guys, I knocked the lead off my battery." We've heard these stories, these heroic stories about how people on repeaters have saved people's lives. Every 6 months you hear one of these.
Yeah.
But it's so few and far between. I will say this: if we want to be a service, we have to really rethink the idea and really resell it, because it is a very outdated image, I think, in my opinion.
I think you very well may be right. So, how's the noise over there, Dave? I had you muted for a while. Are you?
Yeah. Could you tell the Rummy Cube game just ended?
This is what happens when you're holed up in your in the lounge there at your parents' place. So
I'm just glad they didn't start jumping up and down and dancing about who won. So
yeah,
seems like a very cutthroat game.
Yeah. So ham radio is a hobby. It should be lend to the service of the community when requested. And I think, maybe as the key takeaway is that's what it is. It's a hobby, and it's a great way for us to practice our communication skills. And as you said, Joe, when 9/11 or Katrina or other mass scale event like that, the people that stepped up and were the ones that were able to serve were the ones that knew their equipment and knew their limit, knew what they could do with it, and started, they were hobbyists that started providing a service. So I think you're absolutely right. So it's get out there, use your equipment, learn, know it inside out, have fun with it, and when the need comes, you'll be ready. So, all right. Well, that's not as bad as I thought it would be.
Oh, don't worry, the hate mail's coming.
Oh, I'm sure. Let's look at the poll quick, and then I think we'll probably. I think we're pretty close to the end here. So, and poll results coming up. Ham radio, a hobby or a service? 94% say hobby. 5% say service, with 34 people voting. So there you go. We have the answer to this month's burning question. So.
Yeah. I was hoping we'd get to the Coax question. I'm curious, what do you guys use for Coax?
Oh yeah.
Because I know 8X, RG8X is real popular. Is that what you guys use?
Yeah. For any portable HF, 8X is lightweight. It's cheap. If I got to cut it up or do something with it, I don't cry about it. It's very flexible, and for HF, it's fine. I wouldn't really recommend it for VHF or higher, but for 6 meters and down, it's perfectly fine.
Well, I use short runs, 25 footers for VHF, UHF for if I'm doing something portable. But yeah, 8X is what I usually use for in the field. I think I carry 250s and 225-foot runs, so, and plenty of barrel connectors, so I can put together whatever I need. And I've got enough pieces there, enough short pieces, so that one of them goes bad on you, at least you're not reliant on just one piece of coax.
Right. Yeah. I do carry a piece of 174 with me, and the reason I use that is it's really light. It's a little bit smaller diameter, a little bit less weight. So when I put up my fiberglass pole, or I put it somewhere where the support is a little shaky, sometimes a little bit less weight is a reasonable trade-off for a little bit loss. A very short, 25-foot piece. It's not a big, especially on HF.
I've heard some people using RG 316. It's extremely thin, but it's a high power coax. It's got decent losses on HF. It's designed for using as short jumpers for UHF and higher, like repeater sites and things like that. But because it's so thin, you can kind of use makes a really good jumper. But the ultralight portable guys like to use that stuff. But I don't think it's very cheap though. 50 feet of that's gonna cost you an arm and a leg. So.
You can't scare me. I got 24 inches of RG 405 that cost $70 with connectors. But it's great at 10 gigahertz.
Yeah, Scout uses the 316 so it's if you're packing in, that's the stuff you're probably going to want. Let's see, 25 feet RG 58. 58 is good for fine. It's fine for HF. 8X for POTA. Try unrolling 213 in the cold.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to bring Gallimard 400 in the cold. If you really want to treat, backyard, I got some short, like 7,500-foot runs of inch of 7/8 hard line.
Well, there you go.
When it gets below 0 Fahrenheit, I don't think any coax is unrollable. It just snaps.
No,
it's so brittle.
Yeah. Winter field day is coming up. We'll prove that real shortly.
Oh yeah. Alan asks, have you seen the new NFIT halfway kit from K6 ARK available on Amazon? It's for QRP. I've seen pictures of it. I haven't had a chance to watch. I think he did a video on it. it's tiny. It's just no bigger than a BNC connector. But
It's like
I don't know.
Toroid. The Toroid is built right into the BNC connector, isn't it?
Yeah, tiny Toroid built right into a BNC. Obviously QRP. So it's something you could certainly stick in your pocket. I don't know. We might have to take a look at that. So. Okay. So, with that, Joe, do you have anything that's gonna grind your gears this month?
You know what really grinds my gears?
Yeah. Oh, I do.
Does it get anything to do with POTA? Or I mean,
No.
with COVID?
No.
With COVID?
No. It was a direct. It was really direct. So, about 4 weeks ago, a good friend of ours, Christian, K0SCH, posted a video to chat with me and Michael. And it was a YouTube video. And God, the guy in the thumbnail looked really familiar. He's really good looking. Had a bow fang in his hand. Oh, God. And, you know, I got a little, holy, you know what? It's me. Someone did a bow fang video, and they took footage from our bow fang video and used it with my head. That really grinds my gears. I was spitting tacks. They said some potty words. But here's the deal. Michael owns copyright to my face on YouTube. He owns me.
Crazy, isn't
He
it?
owns me. I'm his you know what. And I said, Michael.
Only your likeness.
my likeness. And there's a lot to like, ladies. Okay?
So what's the retail value of your face, Joe?
About, you know, a beer or two on 50-cent tap night. But regardless, they didn't have our permission at all. Yeah, and besides the point, the bow thing has just been beaten to them. It's like beating a dead horse that's already rotten and festering. So, of course, we had to take some action. We had to tell YouTube, hey, they stole Joe. And, you know, I own Joe is what Michael told them. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, they took the video down. But, you know, here's the deal. First of all, there's a lot of stuff you can do a video on for in YouTube for amateur radio. It's endless. So let's get off the foul things, please. I'm sick of them. I don't want to see them over again. And second of all, don't steal me. For God's sakes, if you're going to steal someone, find someone better looking.
Really, make your own original content.
Find your own monkey. I know where you guys are from. You're down in Australia. You can find someone who's better looking than me that can probably put a sentence together better than I can. Don't steal me.
Yeah.
And then don't use it as your thumbnail on your video, you idiots. God. Really? I don't know. And I don't know how much so we're stole off that or the rest of all original content. But, you know, and the funny thing is that the part that we actually stole up is we were kind of hamming it up, you know, so to speak. It was a little bit of tongue-in-cheek farce part. So he's got me kind of looking like an idiot with a ball thing in my hand. Now, granted, I do that very well. I portray that to a T. But, yeah, I kind of felt like, you're kind of, I'm not a real big fan of that. So we took care of it. But, you know, this right here belongs to that guy, okay? That's all I got to say about it. I'm yours, Michael. Until the copyright.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, you got to do what you got to do. So, yeah, Alan asked, you know, didn't they credit the video?
No.
Yeah, no. There was no
didn't.
credit, no attribution. No, you know, they didn't ask ahead of time, but.
Nope, bastards.
Yeah. So, yeah, at the very least, they could contribute to the Patreon. I intend to. We could use some beer there.
Mail, I'm sure.
Check is in the mail. We just wait on a couple IRCs, right? You can Venmo me, you can PayPal me. I don't know.
No, there we go. Is that what the kids are doing these days? Hey. Yep, we gotta keep that mission alive. So
Right. That's what I got. That's all I got. That's
yeah.
nothing to complain about for this month.
Yep. So well. All right. Well, coming up, Winter
How
Field
far
Day.
behind are you on videos? You're about a month behind in videos, 6 weeks.
No, about I've kind of I kind of narrowed the gap a little bit over December because I needed some of that so I could take the pressure off and have some fun over the holidays. I think I've got 1, 2, 3 Parks on the Air activations that are still sitting in the can. So you'll see those.
You're not literally sitting in the bathroom activating a park.
No. You know, as in the old days, in the can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Film at 11.
Yeah.
He literally has a Super 8. He just transfers it over to digital.
This, I think I might have shared this once before. I was cleaning the back room, and this is actually one of my student films, and from college. And you are very lucky I do not have a 16 millimeter projector.
Yeah.
Yesterday they call it. Back then they call it college films. Nowadays they call it Obi fans.
Yeah.
We are very lucky we haven't seen it yet, Michael. And I only buy all the 16 millimeter cameras I can find in the area and destroying them.
Oh, gee.
Yeah. Hopefully it wasn't a porn star. Oh.
I heard he was this close.
Oh man. I think that COVID is going to your head, Joe.
I think you better shut this down.
All right. We're coming up. Winter Field Day. Is that January 29th and 30th? So
Yes.
yes.
Always the last full weekend in January, if I remember correctly. So.
And
by the way, your wife just posted there.
Yeah.
You get to keep me in the divorce. You know what, Christine? My wife's going to agree on that.
It might be the NyQuil. So
yeah, I haven't even hit that yet.
Okay. And we got a couple Parks on the Air videos coming up. I got some other content that I'm working on. I do have a sequel. The Project Elf was one of my most, was a fan favorite this last year, and I have a sequel coming up to Project Elf. I don't know if it'll come up in January yet, but certainly by early February. So it's look for that. And it's
I don't even know what it's about, guys, so don't ask me.
I think we might have talked about it briefly, but it's not about Elf, but it's similar to Elf. The pilot BMP wants us to do a 50K level of APRS set up for the ISS. So I'll add that to the list. That's a good thing to talk about, what they got up there. So
Okay.
it's let's see if we can do that. That's good winter content because it's cold outside. It's You got to go home yet, Dave, don't you?
Yes, I do. Is it 10 below yet? It probably is.
It is cold. It's 10 degrees here in Wausau, but I'm sure it's colder there in Eau Claire. But
I don't know anymore. The outside thermometer broke about a month ago. I got to get a new new digital clock and thermometer I got to order. So
when the heated bird bath is froze over, it's cold.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's I think we've been beating that horse long enough. It's time to wrap up this month's episode. We will be
I
back
think so.
Thursday, February 3rd, 7:00 p.m. So mark your calendars and join us next month. We always we love it when you guys come in. It's always a great time. Especially Dave, I'm glad you were able to come in tonight and give us a hand.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. You're my rock, my support.
There we go.
Don't be a stranger. We can. You're welcome anytime. So
Sweet.
All right, and Joe, you got to get better.
Yep.
So.
We'll be better here shortly. I really think the worst of it was 2 days ago, so I'm on the mend here. Right. In fact, I kind of want to, like, I'm thinking like the 5-day rule now. I'm thinking Sunday I can probably go hiking or at least do a little snowshoeing, and we'll see how it goes.
Oh, there you go. As long as you're socially distant. So.
Right. Right. And if I die, I'm out in the woods, no one will find me.
I'm sure you can't wait to get back to work, right?
Well, the problem was I took the week off before, so basically I haven't worked in almost 2 weeks. It's got to get to where I need to go back to work.
You'll forget what to do. So.
Right.
Well,
I need a paycheck.
You'll become non-essential.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So, well, with that, we'll bring this episode of Your Questions Answered to a close. So, thanks for joining us. I'm Michael, KB9VBR.
I'm Joe, KD9CJX.
I'm Dave, KZ9B.
73.
7-3. Have a good night.
Good night.